Okay, we are live. We are live. Okay, so former British Commonwealth European heavyweight champion Joe Bugner has passed away. So let's look at what's going on. First of all, I need to click a couple of buttons and then we'll get into it. You know what I'm saying? Let's click a couple of buttons and set the screen up nicely. Right. Frank Smith from Upper Tie versus Chisora. So I don't believe it's happening. Who turned it down, Upper Tie or Chisora? I never saw that fight happening. I never saw it happening. Right. Wow. Couple of buttons to click. Big up Bruce Gass, big up Leon Figures. Yeah, Joe has passed away, people. So what are they saying about it? What information? Because I haven't got any along myself, so I'm going to dig around, see what's going on. Right, open. Right. Okay. Now, I know quite a bit about his career, so don't worry about that. When I get into my stride, I know quite a bit. But it's just getting into my stride. Right. Now, what's the share thing? The share option. I won't leave the screen like that. That share? No, that's not. That's invite guests. That could be shared up. No. Settings. That share. No. Where's the share thing? That's weird. Present or invite. Share screen. Okay. Yeah. So he's passed away age 75 in his care home. Now, it's fresh, so they haven't gave the cause of death. Not too worried about that. Right. So basically, Joe Bugner, Big Joe, he was born in Hungary. I'm telling you, I'm getting these brain freezes and it's getting a bit worrying. I'm not even joking. These brain freezes are getting worrying. So he actually lost his debut. He was stopped or knocked out. There's no footage of it. In 1967. He turned pro age 17. Knocked out by an individual named Paul Brown. He did avenge that loss a few fights down the line. And Where it changed for Joe, a lot of people may not know. Where it changed for him, one sec. Right. Only problem with doing it on the laptop, all the alerts come up while I'm working. And sometimes that is highly annoying. Right. Highly annoying. Right. Present or invite. Share screen. We're doing a slow burner today. I'm not going to rush because rushing, sometimes when you try and rush things and it just, the technology don't let you rush. Saying, well, we are rush for. Take your time. I mean, technology not going to let you rush. So you just got to take your time with it. That's what I'm going to do. So, we mentioned that he lost his debut to Paul Brown. He avenged the loss. So I'm going to put Boxrec up. That's what's taking me a little time right now. Right. So, for those who don't know, after the first loss, he ran his record to 13-1-0. And he outpointed a fighter from Trinidad and Tobago. Although he was based in the UK. His name was Ulrich Regis. Regis passed away through injuries from the fight. And it changed Joseph Bugner. It did change him. Yeah, that's right, LaFez. He had dementia for the remaining years of his life, so it's probably something connected to that. That changed him. They say it took the aggression. This is a big man, Joe Bugner. He's not a small guy, all right? Joe Bugner was a big heavyweight. He was 6'4", 82-inch reach, and he was very athletic. But the Regis fight, it changed him. That's what the narrative tells us. So he didn't have a perfect record by any means. He lost to Dick Hall. I'm looking at the record, and I believe the 1973 victory over Ray Patterson is a victory over Floyd Patterson's brother. That Ray Patterson is Floyd Patterson's brother. That's what I believe. I believe Ray Patterson is Floyd Patterson's brother. Can't confirm it, but I'm sure I remember reading something like that. He beat the likes of Brian London, good win. Chuck Wetner, decent win. He had some very good wins, can't deny that. Then he had the controversial one, challenging for the European heavyweight title, the Commonwealth heavyweight title, and the British heavyweight title against Henry Cooper. Now, the fight was fought over 15 rounds. It was controversial. And it kind of changed Bugner's career in Britain for let's say forever, right? Let's say forever. It changed his career forever. Because Henry Cooper was the UK's favorite, right? The crowd was a pro Henry Cooper crowd. Harry Gibbs gave the verdict to Joe Bugner. It wasn't Joe's fault. I've watched the fight. It was a close fight. You know what I mean? And like the press, the media, and Joe Bugner, they made Joe Bugner's life hell. And like Joe didn't help himself with some of the negative performances, which they say is a result of the Ulrich Regis fight, where Ulrich passed away. So it was, what was the scorecard? Let me see that scorecard. The scorecard is bloody tight, wasn't it? 73 3/4 to 73 and a half. Now, that was the old school 15 round duration. And Henry Cooper never fought again. He never spoke to Harry Gibbs ever again. He didn't speak to Joe Bugner for years, probably until the 80s. He never spoke to Joe Bugner. He was that PISSED over the result. You know what I mean? And the press never, like, he had a bad relationship with the British press. Let's just say that. Bad relationship. Then, you know, with Bugner, his form was a little bit erratic. Like before he fought Henry Cooper, he drew with someone named Bill Drover at the York Hall over 10 rounds. And then one fight after defeating Cooper, he defends against Jurgen Blin, which was a tough fight. I've watched that. And then he loses his titles to Jack Bodell. Bodell floored him. Bodell was quite an awkward fighter. He was a southpaw. He was decent. He was a decent fighter, right? When I say decent, he was awkward. He was unconventional. Yeah? Jack Bodell, former British Commonwealth heavyweight European champion. There's pictures of Jack Bodell with Muhammad Ali. Ali came all the way to the UK to open Bodell's chip shop. Came all the way to do that. Then he wins another fight after that, then loses to Larry Middleton, an American fighter. He was knocked down in the 10th. So his form was a little all over the place. Then there was the Boar Fest against Leroy Caldwell from America, where he got DQ'd. And that was the big critique, is that a lot of his fights just never ignited. They just never ignited. You know what I mean? Then he fought Muhammad Ali for the first time at the Convention Center, Las Vegas, and lost a points decision. There was no title on the line for that. That was shortly after Ali lost to Joe Frazier. There was no title on the line. And look, see, he had a tough career. He's saying a tough career. Then his next fight, he fought Joe Frazier at Earl's Court. Now, that was a tough fight, right? It was a tough fight. What was the score? 58 and a half to 59 and a quarter, right? Harry Gibbs again. And Joe Frazier floored him in the 10th in what was a very tough fight. 12-rounder, Earl's Court, London. And then in between his title shot against Ali in 1975 in Kuala Lumpur, he's beat the likes of Jimmy Ellis, former WBA heavyweight champion. Mac Foster's is not a bad name. So he had some decent wins. And then the one performance where he did turn up was defending or was he defending, or did he win all them straps? I don't know what configuration of who had the belts at the time, but he destroyed Richard Dunn in one round. He really showed up for that. He looked, up for it. And then next fight, that was 76, the Richard Dunn fight. Then 77, he goes to Caesar's Palace and has a very good fight with Ron Lyle and loses a split decision. Very good fight. Not a bad fight at all. Yeah? So he could definitely get busy. He could get busy. Wasn't a bad fighter on his day. You know what I mean? He wasn't a bad fighter. Right. Big up Chris Mateus. LaFez. Let's see who's in the building quickly. Bruce Gass. Big up Bruce. Big up Jimmy. Yeah, man. Take your time, innit, Jimmy? You know what I mean? Something you just got to take your time. Wexford, he said, I honestly thought he died about 10 years ago. Mandela effect, maybe. Yeah. Big up Daniel Cole. Oh, Bruce is saying it was cancer. Okay. Leon says, sitting tight for the incoming history tutorial on Mr. Bugner's career. School's in session, so hit the like. You heard it, man. Yeah. Oh, September 1st, not a good day for boxers, eh, Bruce? Tommy Morrison, 2013. Ernie Shavers, 2022. Joe Bugner. Wow. Not good for heavyweights, is what he looks like, Bruce. Not good for the heavyweights. You know what I mean? So, okay. Let's get back to Joe. Yeah, he loses a 15-rounder against Ali. You know what I mean? He was durable. Ali was just too quick. You know what I mean? Ali still had a bit left in the tank in 1975. And then obviously loses to Ron Lau. And then he was stopped by Ernie Shavers. A fight after the Ron Lau fight. He had one win, then he was stopped by Ernie Shavers. You see, he's campaigning quite a lot in America because at this time he's getting a lot of criticism. But you see, between the Ron Lau fight and it's 5 years between the Ron Lau fight and the Ernie Shavers fight. So he wasn't in love with the sport, and a lot of that. I'm not going to blame the media, but there was definitely a wedge between them. You know what I mean? And the Ernie Shavers fight, he was stopped by a cut, but he was down in the first round. Like Ernie had that punch. Like, who did he do it on first? Was it Ellis or Ken Norton? I forget which one. I tell you, his brain freezes. Because what he used to do, and he's done it a few times. That's what I realized. He's done it more than a couple of times, right? So what Ernie used to do, yeah, is basically use the back of his forearm, right? He'd steady your head, right, on the back of his forearm, and then he'll drill you with this right uppercut. And once you get hit with that, then it is what it isn't. Once Ernie hits you with that, right? And Bugner did well to get out from that uppercut. He done well to get up from that uppercut. But he was cut and he was stopped in the second round. That was in Dallas. And they've got the Winston Allen fight here, actually. That was his comeback fight. He came back 5 months later against Winston Allen. That's probably on a Frank Warren card, I'm going to imagine. Let's have a look. Who promoted this? Right. So I'm putting the dots together, yeah? I'm putting the dots together. I'm going to give you a lot of useless information. I always like to give a bit of useless information, right? So Frank Warren heard about Joe Bugner's death, and he said participated on his first fight on ITV. You see, Frank Warren, he changed the game up a little. For those who don't know, the BBC used to put on a lot of the domestic cards, but how they used to do it, they'd put it on a slight delay. So if the fight took place at 9 or 8 or whatever, because it was on weekdays, yeah, it was on weekdays, they'd put it on. If it was live at 8, then we'd get it 9:30, 10 o'clock on Sports 9. But Frank, when he got on ITV, he was showing his cards live. Well, he was showing at least not the whole. Back then, you never used to see whole cards, not on terrestrial television, not in the UK, because it would just take up too much time. So the headliner, we'd see a lot of them live on ITV. A lot of them were live. And I believe, looking at the box rec, Joe Bugner versus Winston Allen is Frank's first fight on ITV. That's what I believe. Could be wrong, but that's what I believe. And that fight, the Winston Allen fight, is funny. The Winston Allen fight was funny, right? Because Bugner was doing his play with his food thing, little uninspired. Yeah, I mean, and then Winston, a black Welshman, he got a bit, feisty, and he headbutted Joe. Yeah, he headbutted Joe. So Joe kind of winced from the headbutt, and he got pissed. And Joe threw his right hand down the pipe, bang, and knocked out Winston Allen. Knocked him out. I'll never forget that fight. I think that was Frank's first fight on ITV. You know what I mean? I do remember. You see, when you go old school in the 80s on the British thing, and when you see Crest Hotel Bloomsbury, you can assume they're Frank Warren fights. You know why? And Alexandra Pavilion, you can assume they're Frank Warren fights without even looking. You know why? Because they're the venues he had to use. See, the cartel was still in effect at this time. And their cards were at Wembley and Royal Albert Hall. They're the big arenas. Frank was left with the Crest Hotel and Alexander Pavilion, which are decent arenas. You know what I mean? And Bugner had a few fights with Frank. He had the Winston Allen fight, Danny Sutton, Dino Dennis, and Eddie Nielsen. They're all with Frank. You know what I mean? But I remember going to a Alexander Palace event with Frank Warren. Went to a couple. And then he lost to Marvis Frazier in America. Frazier was 9-0. He lost to Marvis Frazier. Basically, Frazier just outworked him. He was too young, and Joe just, you know what I mean? How old was Joe at this stage? He was only about 33, but 33 back then. I think fighters these days keep themselves in they probably preserve a little better today. Probably because they don't fight as much as well. You know what I mean? They don't fight as much. Like Bugner fought a lot. You know what I mean? Like Bugner retired with over 80 fights, I believe. How much fights did he have? Yeah, he had about 83 fights. And Frazier outworked him. And then Anders Eklund, he only bloody hell, he barely scraped past Anders Eklund. Bruno blew Anders Eklund out in 4th for the European title, and Noel Corliss did him as well. Anders Eklund, basically Scandinavian fighter. Was he from Sweden? Bruce knows because Tim knocked him out. Me and Tim were talking about that knockout, the overhand right, Anders Eklund. And then he lost to Stefan Tankstead, who was, let's say, European title level. Like, Eklund actually took the European title of Stefan Tankstead. Yeah, but Bugner lost to Stefan Tankstead in Copenhagen. And then he took a couple of years out, relocated to Australia. I remember him and his wife Marlene kind of like sticking the middle finger up to the UK. He had enough. And he had 3 wins in Australia against James Tillis, David Bay, and Greg Page, all on points. And then he got the big showdown with Frank Bruno at White Hart Lane. Now, that wasn't Frank Warren. That was Barry Hearn's first breakout fight. Is Frank Bruno versus Joe Bugner. You know what I mean? Now, where do I start with this one? Like, Bruno had only lost once. That was probably to Tim Witherspoon. He had lost at that stage there. And Bugner was probably looking for a paycheck. Yeah? Probably looking for a paycheck. Although he kind of screwed up his money. There's a little story with his money, which I'll go into in a minute. So what happened was, this is 1987. Frank lost twice. Yeah, no, Frank had lost twice by this time because he lost to Witherspoon for that WBA title, and before that he was knocked out by Bone Crusher Smith. So he lost twice. It was 31-2-0. So what happened was, the boxers were given options. You could either take a flat purse, which was about 200K, because this is a stadium fight, White Hart Lane, Tottenham, where Conor Ben and Chris are going to have their 2 fights, right? So either a flat purse of 200K, or you could bet on yourself, and your purse will be predicated on what kind of gate the fight does. Joe Bugner took the flat purse of 200K, but they got around 40 or 50,000. I don't know what the total was at White Hart Lane, and Bruno walked away with 600,000. Yeah, because he went for the gate option. He went for the gate. You know what I mean? Now, sometimes that can go against you. Like Kovalev, he could have took a flat purse against Andre Ward and at least walked away with something, but he banked on the pay-per-view money, which didn't manifest. And he basically fought for free. I mean, you need to see, this is what I'm saying. Bruno was very well managed. In comparison to Frank Bruno, he was very well managed. And see, the thing, a lot of people don't believe that the management and matchmaking has anything to do with how successful you are at boxing. They just believe that boxers can go in there and just bang and smash away. And it's the biggest load of bollocks that anyone could tell you. You know what I mean? Like, even monsters like Mike Tyson, even manufactured. We've seen people have got it in their mind that being manufactured is the worst thing. No, it's not. You still got to be able to fight. You got to be able to take advantage of the situations that are opening for you. You know what I mean? If you're badly managed, you're going to walk away broke, probably, a little CTE'd, and it's not going to end up well for you. It's not going to end up well. Frank Bruno was well managed. You know what I mean? So after that, Bugner took probably 8 years out after the Bruno loss. Then he turned back up in Australia, and he actually won the Australian heavyweight title, which not the greatest feat, but he was old at this stage here. I mean, he was at least 1995. He was in his 40s. He was definitely in his 40s. Yeah, he was in his 40s. And he won the Australian heavyweight title. Couple of fights after that, he got stopped by Scott Welsh from the UK in Germany. I remember them body shots caved him in. And he basically ended his career in Australia, had about 6 more fights. Most of them, or all of them, were wins, actually. He beat Bone Crusher Smith, who was ancient himself. His shoulder was injured, Bone Crusher, and the fight ended after a round. And he ended with a record of 69-13 and won Joe Bugner. Yeah. So we say rest in peace. You know, he made a lot of headlines. This was when Fleet Street reported on sports. And, you know, when he fight Frazier and Ali, he was a headliner. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's when boxing got on the back page. Yeah, so unfortunately, he's passed away. You know, turned pro 1967. Fought Ali in 73 for the first time. Then 75 was the title fight. The WBC belt was on the line. The person he beat for the Australian title was Vince Serby. Yes. His last fight was 1999 against Levi Billups. He was disqualified. He was born in Soreg, Hungary, 1950. He and his family fled the country after the 1956 Soviet invasion and eventually settled in the United Kingdom. So he won the ABA light heavyweight. Wow, he was a light heavyweight at 17. He won the ABA light heavyweight title as an amateur. You know what I mean? Yeah, man. But he got a lot of credit for the Joe Frazier fight because, you know, it was a really good fight. I think his style was kind of like tailor-made for Frazier in certain ways, but he just wasn't able to keep the intensity up just enough to warrant a decision. But it was a good fight. It was a good exchanges. He retired a lot, a few bad losses, like the Jack Bedell wasn't supposed to lose that one. But, you know, done his thing, man. Done his thing. Bruce Gass, Bugner, the oldest heavyweight champion, 48, according to the very credible WBF. Big up, Kieran Malcolm. Yeah. Kieran said he wouldn't have known who Joe Bugner was if it wasn't for you. Big up, big up, big up. Yeah, he wanted to fight Tyson. He wanted the payday, Bruce. You know what I'm saying? He wanted the payday. Payday. Joe wanted payday. So good. Fish, he says, R.I.P. Mr. Bugner. Bruce Gass says, Tankstead got the fight with Michael Spinks when he beat Bugner. And Marvis Frazier got the Tyson fight when he beat Bugner. Joe wanted both them fights. Yeah. I remember Michael stopped Tankstead in around 5. He dropped him with them left hooks. Just a level too much for Stephen Tankstead. You know what I mean? Who wasn't a bad fighter. Like today, he would have been a small cruiser. Stephen Tankstead today would have been a small cruiser. But when you think about it, right? He weighed in 200 for the Joe Bugner fight, yeah? If you're weighing in 200, right? That means you're not cutting weight. That's his walking around weight, right? So he's not rehydrating. When he's fighting the likes of Usyk and Gassiev and Bradis, they're much bigger than him. They're much bigger. much bigger. You know what I mean? Yeah. What is Stephen weighing? I ain't got his weight. He was around 200 pounder. He was no more than 200 pounds. All the weights there, they haven't got his weight. Marvis Frazier would have been a small cruiserweight today because he weighed in 200 pound against Joe, and that's not cutting down. That's his weight. That's his weight without cutting down to make the weight limit or a weight limit. Yeah, that's his weight. Yeah, see, Tanks did. You mean weighed in 202 for fights, 207. He'd have been just a fair size cruiserweight. Yeah. Yeah, he beat Bone Crusher at 40, at 48. Yeah. How many other fighters fought both father and son? Yeah, he fought Marvis and Joe. Yeah, I lost to both of them. Tone said British fans never really got behind him, apparently. I was too young to notice Britain's best heavyweights of the 70s. Yeah, he wasn't a favorite with Fleet Street. He wasn't a favorite. They never took to him, you know. I think he took the Bruno fight because he saw the adoration Bruno got from the British public, but Bruno scored a lot of knockouts, and they just liked Bruno a lot more. Like, Bruno was so endorsement friendly. It's incredible. You know what I mean? Bruce Gass says Brits forgave him for the Cooper fight when Bruno beat him. I disagree with that, Bruce. I would say, like, by that time they didn't care. So I think by that time it was like he wasn't that relevant no more. Frank Bruno was the dude, and Lennox Lewis was probably 87. Lewis was still waiting for the Seoul Olympics of '88. But yeah, Frank Bruno from 1980 was on BBC One with the Cartel. You know what I mean? He was with BBC One, and he was that dude. He was that dude. You know, like, he always headlined on Sports Night. He was endorsement friendly, like HB Source and see him on TV, and the HB Source advert wasn't a crowning moment for Frank Bruno, though. You know what I mean? That wasn't a crowning moment. Not for him, not for his standing amongst the Caribbean community. Anyway, let's just say that. But yeah, what was I looking for? Yeah, you see, like, Frank Bruno by that time was the main hope. He was the white hope in black skin. That's what he was, basically, because at that stage there, Britain, like, it was an awkward time for British boxing, man. It was a very awkward time for British boxing. I'm trying to configure in my mind how to we weren't challenging. We wasn't challenging the Americans in no way or form. It wasn't like today where Dubois won a belt, he might not have defended it, and Fury. Now we got prospects like Moses Atoma. It wasn't like that back then. We didn't have it like that. We did not have it like that. Not at all. It was a struggle. I'm talking about, like, it was a real struggle. But in saying it was a struggle, the Brits always enjoyed the heavyweight fights. You know what I'm saying? So even though we didn't have the depth of talent, like when what's his name? John L. Gardner from Hackney went over to America and fought Michael Dokes. And he got, I hear, like, my man took a row of Gardner's teeth out with them combinations. Broke out. Bad knockout. We were just, we was resigned to the reality that British heavyweights just couldn't do it. You know what I mean? Like, there was a stage, like, let me see. You had Joe Bugner. He lost to Bodell, like I said. Bodell was a decent fighter, but no more than domestic European level. And then I remember watching that program on Sports Night, man. They showed the history of the British heavyweight title. Then you had guys like Danny McClendon. Lord God. I watched Danny McClendon versus Jack Bodell, and it was like a pub fight. They was exchanging these big swinging punches, and McClendon caught Bodell with that right hand, that roundhouse barroom punch, and took him out. It was exciting. And then McClendon, obviously, he didn't keep the belt very long. He didn't keep it very long. You know what I mean? He lost to the first, I believe Bunny Johnson was the first immigrant to win the heavyweight title. He was a Jamaican. He beat Danny McClendon. You know what I mean? I could never find that fight. I remember me and my dad always said, we never get to see them fights. You know what I mean? Yeah. And Richard Dunn beat Bunny Johnson on points. And these fighters were not top draw. You know, guys like John L. Gardner were good. They were good. They actually said that John L. Gardner worked Ali over in the exhibition. Worked him over. But that obviously that was around 1979, 1980. Ali was finished. But he worked him over. Gordon Ferris. Yeah, Neville Mead. Neville Mead looked old even when he was younger. I mean, he was up a Jamaican. He was British champion. You had Piercy, David Pearce. All these fighters have passed away, man. Like Hugh Roy Curry passed away. David Pearce. Is Neville Mead still about? I don't know. I think John L. Gardner's still around. And yeah, it wasn't like today. Let's just say it wasn't like today. David Pearce, well, he passed away, didn't he? Neville Mead, is he still around? No, he passed away in 2010. Why did I think he was Jamaican? He's Monstration, yeah? All right. You're Monstration, Mum. You know, one of your people that Monstration. I thought he was a yard man. Neville Mead. But it's confusing. They're saying Swansea's Jamaican-born heavyweight champion Neville Mead, but here they're saying he was born in Montserrat on Wikipedia. So there's a little conflict of his birth date there. Anyone know? What's the accurate information? Montserrat or Jamaica? I think it's Jamaica. I think you got that wrong. I think he's from Jamaica. Neville enough. Wow. Tom says Bruno was massive in the UK. He was huge. Bruno changed the landscape for black athletes, not just boxers, for black athletes. You know what I mean? changed the landscape. 80s was a different ball game for black athletes. You know what I mean? Like Bruno was the precursor for Ben, Eubank, and Watson. You know what I'm saying? That's when they had their series of fights. Like, no black fighters had got the attention that, like, compete, because Bruno didn't have a rival in the UK. That was the one thing he lacked, right? He fought Tim Witherspoon for the title, right? At Wembley, and got stopped. Hey, it was a tough fight though, bro. He lost to Bone Crusher Smith before that at Wembley Arena. He got stopped by Witherspoon in the 11th. He fought Mike Tyson in 1989. But in that 10-year period, because he turned pro 1982, let's say in that period in the 80s, he didn't have a British rival. Well, he did really, because in that stable he was in, up Canning Town. What was the gym called again at Canning Town? I forgot now. But anyway, it was run by Terry Lawless. It was upstairs. The gym was upstairs in a pub, right? You had not Hugh Curry. I think Funzo Banjo might have been there for a little while, but you definitely had Horace Notice and Gary Mason, right? And they never fought. They was all stablemates and they never fought. You know what I mean? So we didn't get Mason versus Hugh Roy or Hugh Roy versus Frank. Not Hugh Roy. We didn't get Mason versus Horace or Horace versus Mason. And that was unfortunate. He didn't have a rival. You know, like Lewis launched himself from British European level after he beat Gary Mason, all domestic showdown. And I think that's what Frank lacked in his... Frank never won the British title. A lot of people don't know that. As popular as he was, and as much as a British icon he is, he never won the British title. No, it wasn't Peacocks. It was Canning Town. I'm just gonna... What was the name of the gym now? I forgot the name, man. Forgot the name. They weren't Peacocks. Boxing gym. Canning Town. I'm getting fed up, man. This bloody lappy. Boxing gym. It's on the tip of my tongue, but I just can't get it out. Canning Town. What's it called again? It's upstairs in a pub. No, it's not Peacock. What was it called again? Let me put this in. Royal Oak Gym. Royal Oak. You know what I mean? That's the one. Royal Oak. I have to do something. My memory's doing a mad one on me. I should like doing a mad one. Yeah. Yeah, Gardner got ironed out, Tone. Yeah, he got ironed out. You know what I mean? I remember when remember that Liverpudlian, what's his name? Noel Corliss done him in a round. With the hand speed combinations. Noel Corliss made me laugh that day, man. Because he called out Frank Bruno after he beat John L. Gardner. They say Bruno got punch power. I think that's punch power. Like, oh God, he make me laugh. Noel Corliss. Yeah, Royal Oak Tone. Yeah. And it's weird, isn't it? Like both, no, well, all three of them. Bruno, he retired because of retina issues. Horace Notice retired because of retina issues. Gary Mason, retina issues. He went to America to fight. I mean, and then he was done. All of them, all of their careers died through retina issues. You know what I mean? Wow. Royal Oak Gym. Terry Lawless, man. Terry Lawless. Jimmy Tibbs. I think who used to train? Frank Black was one of Frank Bruno's trainers. And then George Francis took over. George Francis was like mad, but crazy man. Crazy man, George Francis. You know what I mean? George Francis, man. Tough man. Done bird robberies and stuff like that. And it was George Francis in the 60s with my brethren's old man. My brethren passed away as well. His own dad, Bunny Sterling, and a few other Caribbean fighters. He worked with a lot of the black Caribbean. He worked with Bunny Johnson. He worked with John Conte, one of the first black British champions. And he used to get a lot of abuse up there. What era am I talking about now? What era am I talking about? I've got the era. It's in London. It was in another gym above a pub. A lot of the gyms were above pubs. And a lot of people say, what are you working with them N-words for? And call them all types of very condescending, like language. And he just stuck with it. He didn't get involved in all that. Yeah. George Francis was a tough dude, And the way he died was horrible because you're thinking, this dude is extra tough. Like, he'd make them like swim in like cold water, in ponds and stuff like that, butt naked and shit. And he trained them really hard. But I think his son passed away. I think his wife passed away. These things went wrong and he committed suicide. And his suicide is attributed to Bruno having that breakdown. It's George Francis. A lot of people attribute that to Bruno having that breakdown. Yeah. Yeah, man. What's there? Kilburn. Kilburn is the area. That's where George Francis used to train a lot of them Caribbean boxers. Kilburn. Yeah. That's it. Yeah. No, Notice, Mason, and Bruno. All cartel. They used to all fight for the cartel or BBC. Jimmy Gillum. Ali versus Parkinson. You're going to ask that handsome Joe Bugner, can you come on my show, Joe? Okay. Toby Bartlett, big up beats. Salute to the chat. Jimmy said the British plug. Yeah, they were. They were baying for Bugner's blood against Bruno. They didn't want Bugner to win. They didn't want Bugner to win. You know what I mean? They disliked Joe so bad. He got no love, bro. Got no love at all. You know what I mean? Got no love. He just wanted to take the money and go. And he didn't handle his business properly. I mean, he missed out on a lot of money. Because that 600, well, Frank took away, let's say, okay, 400, that he would have got 400, Frank would have got 400. You know what I mean? Because they would have had to split whatever Bruno had. You know what I mean? But Bruno walked away with an extra 400K. You know what I mean? So somebody weren't looking out for him. Yeah. That was Barry Hearn's first big event, man. Like, he wanted obviously a big attendance. So what he did, he said the fight will not be going out live on television. That's what he said. He put it out there. But how did it work again? What did he do? He kind of like, it's a bit of a con job, really, because when they're saying the fight is going live, it doesn't have to be from the first bell. Let's say Bruno and Bugner was in the 7th round. If you put it on from the 7th round, it's still live. But what, like, he missed false advertising by a few minutes, and a few of the press weren't happy. They said, "Yeah, man, that's it's some deceptive advertising." But I'm saying that it wasn't like he wanted people to turn up at the gate. I'm not explaining it very well, but that was a big event, big event, and like Jimmy said, they were baying for Bugner's blood. They didn't like him. Yeah, man. Big up Bruce Gass. Big up Jimmy. Big up Tone. Yes, he says rest in peace. Wow. 75 years of age. It's all good. How long have we been up here? Well, not really much more on the topic, I don't think. I don't think there's too much more. Why 1970s Bugner was a heavyweight great, Steve Bunce. He lost his pro debut. Yeah, we spoke about that. He beat Henry Cooper. He was the 4th best heavyweight for a whole decade. The 4th best heavyweight? What, better than Ron Lau and Norton? Nah, come on. What the fuck are you talking about, Bunsey? What are you talking about, mate? Better than the people who beat him up, like Ernie Shavers. Come on, man. See, people like Bunsey are getting old, man. You're getting old. You see, like me, I'm old, man. But I mean, like, I admit I'm getting the brain freezes. You man getting brain freezes. Hell. I can't even read that. I'm not supposed to read that nonsense. Yeah, man. We lost Big George. Big George. Joe Bugner. Frazier's gone. Ali's gone. Norton's gone. Wow. George Foreman was a shock. I don't know why I was so shocked that George Foreman died, man. I don't know why. And he was a similar age to Joe, you know. He was about a year or so younger than Joe Bugner. Yeah. Wow. Died, yeah. March 19, yes, he was 76. March this year. Yeah, it was, I don't know why I was so shocked. I don't know why I was so shocked. the greats, man. It was a great era of boxing, man. A great era of heavyweight boxing. I remember that fight. The UK to Toby put the hate on Joe Bugner. Frank was a British hero after that fight. Laughing out loud. All right. Well, Frank was a hero even before that, to be honest. Like they like Frank, you know what I mean? Like he fought Witherspoon at Wembley Stadium, done good attendances, man. Like Royal Albert Hall and Wembley. Yeah, Tom says Bruno pushed Bruno over for the stoppage. Ref saved Bugner that night in reality. Yeah. Wow. Right. There ain't really much more unless you guys have got some info. I could pull the plug on this one. How long I've been on? An hour already. Wow. Where does the time go? Where does the time go? Where does the time go? Weather out in the UK is just miserable as well, man. It's just very miserable. Right, boxing UK, they've got Joe Bugner. He fought 83 times between 1967, including Ali twice, yes. He said, unfairly treated by the British press. Joe's achievements, British, European, and Commonwealth heavyweight champion, were far greater than he was given credit for. R.I.P. Joe. Oof. Yeah, man. That's like they just went over the top with the hate. They went over the top. The British press. They did go over the top. They went over the top. They overdid it. When is this photo here? This video, is that recent? Tank Davis and Canelo taking a couple of photos together. Yeah, man. What are Bugner's most exciting or entertaining fights? I'd say the Joe Bugner, Joe Frazier fight was pretty good. The Richard Dunn performance was pretty good. What else we got? What else you got, Joe, on the resume? What else you got? They were good fights. The finish against Winston Allen was funny. He knocked out Winston after Winston nutted him. That was funny. That was kind of funny. He had a good fight. One of them. The Ron Lau fight ain't bad. The Ron Lau fight weren't bad. It weren't bad. Lost a split decision to Ron Lau. It weren't bad. You know what I mean? Not bad. Ray Patterson. That's Floyd's brother. Yeah, it is Floyd's brother. I'm trying to think of what some other good fights he had. Who's hating more, Joe or Audley? Audley was one they took to either. He didn't have barn burners like that, Joe. You know what I mean? He didn't have barn burners. Trying to think. I never saw the fight against Ellis. I don't know if that's online. Jimmy Ellis. It's a good win. The Cooper fight weren't bad, but I mean, it was close. It was close. Al Shield says, "Hey, Beats. Normally, you hear about boxers, the high-profile ones, anyway, being ill in the news for a period of time before they pass, but not with Caps. Foreman. Yeah, he just kind of like, yeah. I don't know why. I don't know why it came as a real shock to me. Maybe because I don't know. Him and Marvin Hagler. Well, Marvin Hagler, I was like, what? You know what I mean? Like, but it is what it is, man. Like, we are not invincible. It is what it is. We are not invincible. Yeah, man. I think can wrap this one up, man. Big up Joe Bugner. You know what I mean? Big up Joe Bugner. It's a bit of a slow period of boxing. Not really much on the zone. I had the Misfits card. I watched Darren Till knock out the UFC fighter, but it is what it is, isn't it? Not really much to report on right now. Slow period. Slow period. If I had more to entertain you guys with, I'd stay up, but I'm not going to stay up here just like, hey, what am I going to think of talking about next? You know what I mean? So it's been good. I mean, R.I.P. Bugner. Any new comments? No new comments. I mean, I don't think much people know Joe Bugner like that. It's probably a big deal to me and a few others, but to others, it's like, I mean, like what did he achieve? He was never a world champion. He was never close to winning a world championship. You know what I mean? He showed durability. He had a decent beard. He was big, so he could make it awkward for his opponents. The general dislike for him from the press was that he didn't really go for it and take more chances. Considering it, like, you know, we're talking a 6'4" guy with 82-inch reach, very athletically built. So, yeah, he done his thing, man. He done his thing. All right, people. Peace.